sure the chair will be talking about that shortly. That's what I have to report, and I'm ready for any questions or comments.
Are there any questions for Maggie? I see Ever's got his hand up.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Maggie. Thanks for the report. I had a question about the underpass on Fifth Avenue, the landscaping. Do you know if there's regular maintenance provided to that area? It seems like lately that is the case.
Yeah, I don't have a full answer for you, but I do remember that DPW was maintaining that area. I don't know how often they do so, but even before the landscaping, they were out there cleaning. I don't know if some of my San Mateo County's colleagues have the answer to that, but I don't have it. I could definitely check with DPW and see what their schedule is like.
Yeah, thank you.
Linda, go ahead.
Yes, regarding the landscaping on Fifth Avenue underpass, that is also part of a 3-phase art project. That's part of the mural project that has been put together by the Colectivo Cultural of North Fair Oaks, which is an art collective. So the first phase of that was to get the landscaping. And I think the only thing that's may still be in the works would be, and Maggie, you can correct me if I'm speaking out of line on this, but there's still a piece about pocket parks, not pocket parks, but areas of greenery. We're not really calling them pocket parks, but anyway, so that would be part of that phase 1 of that whole project. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there was
there's another name for not pocket parks. I forgot what you call them.
Yeah, it was the one where there could be a possible like bench and kind of like resting area.
Correct. Right.
I don't know where that is at in particular, but I think I can check to see what the status, like what happens after now that the landscaping is, sorry, my dog is in the background, that the landscaping has completed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Maggie. Thanks.
Maggie, quick question. The Get to Know Your NFO Library Facebook Live event, when is that scheduled for?
That one is scheduled for May 6th.
Okay.
Yeah, May 6th. I don't know if it's a Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay. Any other questions for Maggie? Okay, let's move on to County Manager's report.
Good evening, everyone. Justin Mates, Deputy County Manager. I don't have much in the way of a generalized report. You're hearing from some of the county departments today that I might otherwise update on. So I don't have much along those lines. I will be speaking later about COVID and vaccine, so I'm happy to take any questions or concerns at that point. I would just say one thing, a question we've gotten recently is, you know, are we going to start having commission meetings in person anytime soon? You know, we don't have immediate plans that I'm aware of at the board meeting to start having that in person. I think we still all need to, you know, wait to see how this vaccine rollout goes for a little while longer. So eventually, I think we will get back in person and we'll stay in touch with you with all of that. But right now, I don't have an estimate for you for when things are going to happen in person again. And with that, I'm happy to take any general questions for the County Manager's Office.
Any questions for Justin? Okay, let's move on to council members' reports. I'll go ahead and go first. Councilwoman Lopez and I interviewed 2 outstanding candidates for the youth representative to the council. One will be a voting member, one will be the alternate. We made our recommendation to the board, and I believe that's going to be on the consent agenda for the board on the for the meeting on May 4th. So we'll have a new youth youth designate at that time. I went to one of the COVID vaccine events. I believe it was the one on March 27th. Saw Justin there, actually met Supervisor Slocum and County Manager Callaghy, had some good discussions with them about just the council and plans for the future and that sort of thing. I believe we mentioned the housing roundtable that was held last week. I think Joni's going to do a report out on that. I also went to the mental health Facebook event that Maggie mentioned. Finally, I got an email today. The Ballet Folklorico Mexico Vivo is celebrating the opening of their new dance studio this coming Saturday, April 24th at 5 p.m. I believe everyone on the council received an invitation to that. I'm certainly planning on stopping by, so just wanted to highlight that as well. Juan Carlos, do you have a report out today?
Yes, we had the NRP meeting. Justin was there and some other department heads for the county. And something that stood out from the meeting was the planning that we need to start discussing for the 4th of July celebration that will be coming up here in a couple of months. And that was from the county fire. They are definitely starting to think about planning for that, and given the situation last summer with the 4th of July celebration in North Fair Oaks, particularly in the more congested part of North Fair Oaks. That point, I stress the importance of that, and the earlier we can start planning on that, the better I think we'll be off this year.
Okay, thank you for that. Beatrice, do you have anything tonight?
Sorry, not this time.
Okay. Joni?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I attended last week a meeting with Brooks regarding an assessment of housing needs in the Bay Area, and specifically our jurisdictions around North Fair Oaks. It was a really interesting meeting, a lot of information. I've done some research since then to sort of place it where it falls in the larger look of how we can assess and meet housing needs going forward to the year 2025. So there is a 3-page handout that I think everybody was emailed, so you don't have to hear me reiterate everything that's in those contexts. And basically, it's the very first meeting of the consortium of jurisdictions in San Mateo County to discuss all of the needs that could possibly be coming up as far as housing. I don't think anybody here is, it's no surprise to anybody here what's happening with housing on many different levels. And it's something that definitely needs to be addressed county-wise and clearly statewide and throughout the country, and probably even throughout the world. But we have some very particular housing needs in this country, especially in our neighborhoods, because there is such a discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots. And the have-nots are getting pushed out to farther and farther away from where they've been living for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And the ripple effect of in all sorts of areas of our life and infrastructure can be felt in climate issues, transportation issues, mental health issues, as well as the future of what's going to be happening in California, the Bay Area especially. And tonight from 6 to 7, I was at the first RINA meeting from the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission that talks about what is the criteria for the Bay Area that helps us understand how to assess what actually are our housing needs, what have they been in the past, what has worked and what hasn't, what's happening currently, and most importantly, how to plan for the future through 2025 and beyond to meet the human needs of our area. If you look backwards, I don't think we've done a very good job, because we're in this position that we're in now that actually probably could have been prevented with enough forethought, planning, and actually being concerned about social justice issues, and as well as the needs of the constituents who live here. You can see that the 2 of the RINA slides that we looked at last week, which I thought were the most interesting, just looks at the overall income versus housing availability and how many units are needed. And it's a complicated mathematical formula that takes into how they decide, how RINA decides how you calculate what the actual number is. But the meeting tonight showed, and I've excerpted a bunch of those links so I can email it to people if they want to see. The meeting tonight showed that the San Mateo County area really needs 4,500 new housing by 2036. Again, not surprising when you see the issues of jobs and people in this county who have very unstable housing. So that the 4,500 new homes count ADUs, junior ADUs, single family homes, condominiums, apartments. They count all sorts of different permutations of what we consider housing. So it's not just single family homes, but it includes the full spectrum. One of the things that I think is interesting is that because we're at the very beginning of this process where they really want to hear community input, that in the winter, in the late fall and winter is when they're actually going to be making a general plan and specific recommendations. So that really points to the fact that everybody on this panel and people who are in the communities, we really need to hear more personal stories than just a lot of cute looking graphs and numbers and charts. It's the personal stories, I think, that help people wake up and realize that the human stressors and human cost of not providing stable housing for people and secure housing, and the ripple effect into our economy, into our infrastructures like transportation and climate and also school education and the future of our neighborhoods. So how do we go about contributing in ways that are really meaningful, but also have a lot of power? So I put at the end of my little blurb here that I'd like to put our heads together and really find a way that we can add the human touch with personal stories. We have such a wonderfully diverse community here. And people are very willing to speak authentically when they're given the time. And housing is a real love of mine because the love of my life has been a general contractor for 45 years and I've been married to him. So believe me, I've had a hammer and a pickaxe and a shovel in my hand more times than I could imagine while we try to turn our houses into places where we could live with our 6 children, which wasn't easy in the old days. So I really feel for people whose housing is unstable. I think after food and water, stable housing is one of the most human of needs. We have not done a good job. And I used to teach in Berkeley, and I don't know about you guys, but I was pissed off every time I drove home at night and saw the size of Facebook. Seriously. What's the ripple effect of that? I don't think we've even begun to know how big money, fast money, and flashy money has altered the landscape of our community and made it harder for people to acquire stable housing. So I'd like to find a way to put our heads together, and I'll be part of any ongoing group that we can continue to bring to RINA in the next 6-8 months, very personal stories of the housing crisis with a lot of specific suggestions that they could incorporate in ways that aren't just charts, because that sort of minuses the human impact. So if anybody has any questions or wants me to forward about the meeting tonight, some of the really good links that I was able to access through their PowerPoint today, I'll be happy to send that on. Anybody have any questions?
I believe we received those as part of an email, Joni. At least I certainly have that if the other council members want to see that.
Well, these were extra because this was a meeting I just
okay.
attended from 6 to 7. But I excerpted them and I can put it in a doc to be passed around. But the initiative, I love the fancy names that all of our communities have, like the 21 elements and the housing efforts and all of this stuff. But what I'd like to really see is that the fancy names of all these programs really get translated into something with a lot of forethought. So RINA is supposed to look at infrastructure issues. They're supposed to look at greenhouse and climate issues. wildfire risk as well as transit in any of their housing decisions, besides the economics of jobs and population, of course, in any housing numbers that they come up with. So I'd really like to see their work translate into righting some of the wrongs. We were headed down a very bad road. You can just look now how hard it is for people to find sustainable housing. And I'd like to see that change with an eye towards infrastructure issues, climate change, and fire risk. Last summer's coming. And I don't know how many of you could breathe, but I had trouble last summer. And I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see all these fancy plans go up in smoke in more ways than one. So include me on anything. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, somebody was just coughing in the background. All right, well, thank you. That was my, please ask any questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'll forward along those other links that I got this evening at the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much, Joni. Linda, do you have a report out tonight?
Yes, I have a few things.
Okay.
Joni, I'm thrilled that you are going to get into housing. We need you. It's been so piecemeal over the years. So this is, I also attended the housing element. I know you're calling it RHINA, but I just call it the housing element that they have to do every, what is it, every 5 years or so. And the things that stood out to me were also what you had mentioned, that housing, that populations that serve us in low-wage work need housing, and case closed. That's what's needed, certainly in North Fair Oaks. I had questions about how are they moving people from the shelter into homes? What's the formula they're using? Couldn't get any answers on that. Is it built into the new housing? I don't know. There's an issue about preserving existing housing. Yes, we need housing, but look at what we have right now. We have a lot of old stock in North Fair Oaks. How do we preserve the existing housing? And the other issue that comes up with new construction, new development in North Fair Oaks is market rate versus affordable housing. And who comes up with that? Well, I know there's a set formula, but it's to the discretion, I believe, of the property owner. But how can we get in there and change that narrative? Because you're building a building of, say, I don't know, 60 units, and you're only going to allow 3 units for someone who's at an affordable or low income level of income. It doesn't make sense. So those were some of the things that popped out for me. The other involvement I've had is attending the vaccine communication and equity. And those are weekly meetings. And I think Justin, you're reporting on that later on in your report. Also, I attended Community Land Trust. That's the new thing in Southern California and in Oakland. So it's just other strategies to look at in helping to counter gentrification and housing displacement. And then also I attended a City of Atherton did a what they call ADAPT workshop. And it's basically some guidelines and training for neighborhoods in setting up post-disaster networks, recovery. So that was really interesting. And I can forward that information to council. And then the last thing I have is, in honor of Earth Day, there will be a community bike ride on Saturday, April 24th. And that is being sponsored by Siena Youth Center, Redwood City 2020, Colectivo Cultural de North Fair Oaks, and North Fair Oaks Community Alliance. And if you're all interested, if you want to be on your bike or however you want to walk or ride. Meeting time will be Saturday, 8:30 at the Sienna Youth Center, 2625 Marlborough Avenue. And it's going to be from 8:30 to 11:30. They're going to ride around the community. So I think that is it. Thank you.
Any questions for Linda? Okay, Ever, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Linda, for bringing that up, the bicycle ride. Just wanted to add, because I'm also participating in that, that we are going to be handing out free face masks for adults and children. Right now, as kids go back to school, those will be appreciated, I'm sure. And the bike ride came up as an idea to honor or to celebrate Earth Day, which is today. But we're having it on Saturday, like Linda said, starting at 8:30, and we're gonna make a couple of stops at the parking lot by the mural on 2nd and Middlefield, and then we're gonna head over to the Espinas Park over on 2nd Avenue in Bay Road. So anybody who wants to join us and cycle through, it's welcome. We're going to try to keep our distance, use face masks, of course. And there will be free face masks for anybody who needs those. And then separate from that, I am part of the committee for the multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan that the County of San Mateo has put together. The County Office of Emergency Services has started this review or an update to these multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan, which was approved in 2016. But to meet the requirements that FEMA has, they need to have an upgrade to that emergency plan. So I'm part of it, and essentially the emphasis that I'd like to make is that they are implementing an equity component to this plan. And so we are now reviewing the documentation and upgrading, and also wherever possible, including some of the components that will allow for a better equity. And then finally, I attended this morning the Vaccine Communications and Equity Working Group meeting. And primarily, it is a substantially good meeting with lots of information and statistics about the COVID response from San Mateo County Health. Today, the piece of information that I'd like to highlight is essentially the County Health is looking at the possibility of changing this weekly meeting into and making it every 2 weeks. But also they're interested in finding out if community stakeholders and community-based organizations are hearing any reluctancy from residents in terms of getting the vaccine, which I have, and it was also interesting to hear from other people that they also have heard, comments from people who are reluctant to get their vaccine. I think that's going to be the next chunk of residents to try to encourage to get their vaccine. You know, some people have been reluctant basically because, you know, some of them got COVID and they think that they already have immunity. Other people are afraid, you know, of the vaccine. They don't want to put something in their bodies that they're not 100% sure, etc. So I think that the next phase that county health may be heading towards would be in trying to create effective messaging for those individuals who are, for whatever reason, reluctant. And so I'll keep you updated on any efforts around that. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, but that's my report.
Any questions for Ever? Okay, Blair, do you have a report out tonight?
Yeah, there, I'm unmuted. I'll keep it brief. I'm glad that we're finding our passion, but I feel like in the interest of keeping the meeting short, we should try to hit the main points and maybe send a group email out with follow-up information. What was significant for me the last month was the transition with the new library branch is going really well. And I'm getting contacted by the San Mateo County Library thing via direct email. And they're telling me I'm going to get mailed a new library card. It's going to replace my Redwood City library card. I'm just really excited. I'm a frequent library user, and I think this is going to be like a real highlight and amenity in our community. I also attended the same mental health workshop that Maggie presented. They did it on Facebook live stream, which was different than Zoom, and it was targeted toward the Hispanic community. I saved all the resources, Star Vista, there's an app, Headspace, Redwood City School District had resources. I'll just send that out in a group email, but because of the demographics of our community, a lot of people are kind of suffering in silence and not asking for the help that they may need. And it takes courage to admit that you need help. I got that from mental health through the VA after my military service. You have to destigmatize asking for help. And it's just really important to be aware that people are in a fragile place right now, economic uncertainty and so forth. And it manifests itself in a whole bunch of ways, and some of them are unhealthy, including abusing alcohol, drugs, domestic violence, all sorts of stuff. Got some feedback. So that's it for me. Look forward to the rest of the meeting.
Okay, any questions for Blair? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. It's a recommendation on 803 15th Avenue for an off-street parking exception associated with a second-story addition to an existing one-story single-family residence. And I need some advice from Councilor Fox here. If you would, Tim, could you remind us with regards to the rules of recusal for council members? And the reason that I'm bringing this up is I live on the cul-de-sac end of 16th Avenue, not right nearby, but it's a question in my mind as to whether or not that's too close to where I can participate in the discussion tonight.
There's both a legal rule and then sort of a professional practice that some folks have decided to employ who are in this position. The first is that the North Fair Oaks Council is an advisory body with regard to land use issues. It is not a decision-making body, and so the purpose of these hearings is to provide a public forum and for the community to provide input to the relevant decision makers, what conditions might be imposed on a project that is placed on the agenda. And so to some degree, the rules that apply under the Political Reform Act fall less heavily on the North Fair Oaks Council than they would on, say, the Planning Commission, the Board of Supervisors, or even a Design Review Committee. Just so that you're aware of the rules that those decision-making bodies do have to follow, there are rules related to proximity to projects that are going to, that are proposed for action. There's a rule of 300 feet and a rule of 500 feet that has been in place for a long time. And then in general, there's also a rule of anticipated impact. Is that the council shouldn't, I'm sorry, that council members should recuse themselves from decisions when there is a potential that a decision made by the council will have a foreseeable economic impact on the individual member of the council, either a good impact or a bad impact. So if the rules of recusal technically apply, we would analyze whether or not a council member's property, if they own or rent property that's within 300 feet or 500 feet of a project, whether we would advise that recusal is a good idea. And then the council member would have that opportunity to recuse themselves from the discussion and the vote on the recommendation. But in the past, when we've looked at this issue, we're reasonably confident that the North Fair Oaks Council, in taking its action, is acting as an advisory body to the decision makers. And so it may not really be of much consequence whether or not an individual member of the council recuses themselves from the decision. Even having said that, and this is the last thing I'll say because I've gone on for a while, a lot of members of the municipal advisory committees throughout the county make a decision not to participate in projects that are too close to home because of the appearance of impropriety. They are concerned that that if they were to take action and spoke favorably, for example, about a project that their neighbors opposed, that it would be difficult for them in conversations with their neighbors about why they took the action they did. So even if they're not voting consistently with what everybody perceives to be what we call pecuniary interests, basically monetary concerns, a lot of council members just decide that they're going to not participate in decisions that are very impactful to their specific sub neighborhood or block or street for that reason. But it's for the most part just left to the discretion of a member of the council whether or not they would prefer not to participate in the vote or discussion because of their unique level of interest in a particular project.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. It was the 300, 500 feet that I was concerned about, and honestly didn't remember what those dimensions were. Then why don't we go ahead? Then we have a presentation from Olivia Boo, who is the planner on the project.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes, I can. It's up in the room.
Great. Oops, sorry, I didn't. It was the first one. Olivia Boo, project planner for the off-street parking exception. Good evening, council members, county council, and public members. I'd like to walk you through the project scope, give you some background on the remodel, discuss or mention public comment that was received by staff, and then answer any questions. So the project as described is a remodel of an existing single-story residence to add a second story and additional bedrooms. This is a photo of the existing residence. There is a large redwood tree that is in the front yard. This is the floor plan. In the green outline is the existing site plan, and on the right side in the red outline is the proposed. I wanted to call out in this green outline of the existing floor plan. And I've highlighted the bedrooms, the existing bedrooms, and then the remodel reconfiguration in the red outline. Essentially, the use of the space and how it's configured is not changing substantially, and that was based on the desire of the homeowners. This is just another design, the same layout. I wanted to highlight the number of bedrooms. I also wanted to call out in this, the site plan, this is a survey of the existing large redwood tree that's in the front. It's circled in green. And these are the elevations, existing elevations of the home. And then the proposed elevations. So the project is reconfiguring internal, just slight reconfiguration on the inside of the existing approximately 1,500 square foot single story house. The addition is going to be adding about 1,000 square feet to the second story. They are retaining one car garage, which is why they need the exception. If you're exceeding 2 bedrooms, then your requirement is to comply with the 2 covered parking spaces, hence triggering this exception. And then as it was shown in the photo and in the site plan, that they are asking, with the exception, asking for the second parking space to be allowed in the driveway. And they have noted, and also is visible from the photos, that they are allowed, they can actually accommodate two uncovered parking spaces in their existing garage. I wanted to show you some photos of, this is approximately, I would say about 5 doors down, an existing home with a second story addition that retained its its 1 car garage. And this is another one in the same neighborhood that has similar circumstances of a 1 car garage and second story. I did want to go over some things that the owner had met. They explained that they had met with several architects in order to land where they are with, and they ended up working with the current designer, Jessica, in terms of talking about how they would approach or could approach the remodel. And they had been told that if they wanted to add a 2-car garage to independently accessible parking spaces, as brand new houses are currently required to build, that they would have to, they would actually have to, there's a high possibility they would have to tear down the entire structure. And yet they didn't want to do the full tear down. They wanted to retain, they enjoy their house as is. They just are in need of more space. So they wanted to retain as much of the floor plan and their house as possible. Also, if they had tried to attempt to expand and accommodate the second parking space, it would again impact where their kitchen is. Their kitchen currently is located right next to their garage, and that would have been impacted. And also another item is the existing redwood tree, which is why I had pointed out that it is a very mature, beautiful redwood tree in the front yard, that would have been definitely impacted by the expansion of a 2-car garage. Staff did receive public opposition, and I wanted to read that. I'm not positive if the opposing parties are at this hearing. I'd like to go ahead and read the emails I had received. The first one is, we are against the off-street parking exception for the residents of the proposed project. The area is dense on 15th Avenue, is currently experiencing an explosion of construction. in addition to this current proposed remodel. Three existing older homes, a few doors down, has been sold to the Thomas James developer or other contractors, and they are scraping the properties and building new two-story homes with 4 to 5 bedrooms, maxing out the square footage. And those are required to have 2-car garage. It seems logical that 803 15th Avenue, the subject parcel, should also provide the same required on-site parking for the same type of house size. The 803 15th Avenue expansion is building for more cars and drivers, not less. We urge you to deny the exemption for the 803 15th Avenue. Parking spaces should not be reduced. We appreciate your consideration. The second opposition was, we are writing to you in regards to the notice we received after asking for comments regarding a request for an off-street parking exception for 803 15th Avenue, Menlo Park. We are neighbors on 14th Avenue and do not want the county to grant the exception. Our streets are narrow and already have many cars parked in the street as is. For this particular property, the street is narrow. In addition, adjacent to a curve in the road, as shown in the photos, there isn't a spot for another car to be parked on the street in front of the property. Additionally, we are concerned about the fire department equipment navigating past cars parked on the street during emergencies or parked cars blocking the view for drivers going through the corner bend in the road. We would like to be kept updated on the county's decision. That is the end of my presentation and the end of the public comment. I'm available for questions, and I do know that the applicant and the owner are also present for questions.
I see Linda's hand raised.
Thank you, Olivia. It's Linda Lopez here. So the two people or the two residents that are in denial of this exception, do they know that the parking would be on site? Because I mean, that takes care of it. In my opinion, that takes care of it, but I don't know, because the reasons, I don't know, what do you do with those complaints, Olivia? Do you actually have a conversation with them and do give them more information or what? Thank you.
Sure. I let them know that I likely did not let them know via email. I let them know that I acknowledged that their comments, and I wanted to encourage them to also be present if they could for the meeting. And you are correct that technically the on-site parking is accommodated in the driveways. What staff does is standard practice is to incorporate the public comment received. It is a staff level decision, so a decision letter, and staff incorporates comments received in addition to comments discussion at this council. Both will be included in the staff decision letter, and then with staff recommendation, and then they will have, if they still have concerns, which can be the case, then if there's still concerns in opposition, then they have the option to appeal the staff's decision on the project. Okay,
thank you.
Joni, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, I was listening to the two emails, and they're equating this family's remodel with scraping property and putting new construction on it. With my extensive background as the spouse of a builder, it's a very different kettle of fish. You're comparing apples and oranges. A lot of people can't afford to scrape a lot and build a brand new house, 2-story house. And it seems like, this speaks to the housing issue that we have to start somewhere to change some of the previous guidelines, keeping in mind, the larger view of the environment in particular, and also the impact on the neighboring streets. This house is going to have a place for 2 cars on the property. So I don't see that it can be compared with brand new housing that's a brand new house, 2,000, 2,500, 3,200 square foot, 2-story house, which requires a 2-car garage. That's my 2 cents.
Are there any other questions from the council? I just had a point of clarification, Olivia. I walked by and there's a covered carport there and space beyond that covered carport for a second car. So there's plenty of room for this. It's my understanding that where the carport is now is actually going to be a garage, and then there'll be a second car, the second applied for parking space in front of the garage. Is that correct? There's no garage right now, I guess is what I'm saying, and that's going to be built where the carport is now. I see Aaron nodding his head, so I think I'm right.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
looking back
All
at
right.
the plan.
So the
Yeah,
configuration
correct.
is basically what the homeowner has right now, which is 2 cars
Correct.
on the driveway. The difference
Yes.
is going to be one will be in a garage after the project is completed.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Here, I do see a hand raised from.
I see Juan Carlos's hand.
Yeah, Olivia, a quick question. Besides the access for the additional cars in the driveway, I know some of the letters or the concerns are about the street. Is there direct on-street parking in front of this property within the property boundaries out in the street?
Can you repeat the question?
My question is, besides the driveway parking on the property, is there also street parking in front of this home on the street? Because that's what some of the concerns that were raised.
Yeah, I want to look back at the photo that I have of the property. My understanding in looking at Google Maps earlier that yes, there is street parking in front.
Okay, Aaron.
I don't know on a daily basis. It's available. There is sidewalk parking. I would have to ask the owners and the applicant to confirm
Sure.
the availability of it.
Yeah, one close. Councilman Prado, I should say. That's a very fair question. And I can almost show you with my laptop here. There's spots for 2 cars directly out in front of our house that get used all the time by delivery people. We don't use both of them, but they get used by delivery people and neighbors and just, workers and stuff like that. But there are 2 clean spots right out in front of us.
Okay, and also just to confirm, if the remodel happens as the plans show, will you be eating up some of the driveway, or that will be intact?
No, there's room for 3 cars in the driveway, and that would not change. Like Councilman Esser mentioned, one would become an enclosed garage would be one spot, and then we would retain the 2 tandem spots behind it in the driveway as is. And we don't have any plans to bring in more cars or more people. It's just for the existing family that we have here. That's it.
Thank you.
Ever, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that the tree or the trees on the front side of the house were not going to be damaged. Is that correct?
Their goal is to protect it, and I'm actually working with them now because I asked for them to, I requested, and they quickly submitted the tree crowns, and that's going to be under review by staff and the county arborist to make sure that they, if for all of our projects, if we determine that the construction is going to impact the trees, then it requires an arborist report to give directive for proper adequate tree protection during construction.
Thank you. And finally, I just had a comment because this is our current issue, with expansions. And I understand, the concerns from the people who submitted public comment in opposition. It is I think it's the culture that prevails, sort of against what is called monster homes, that all of a sudden, this humongous house that takes the whole plot comes up, and then people start losing privacy in their backyards or their front yards, etc. But I think that the more dense our area becomes, we just have to start grappling with those issues of housing growth, and the only way to go is upwards. So I think it is an issue that is inevitable to some extent. So it's something that we need to start considering more often. Thank you.
Linda, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to add to what Everett had brought up about the tree, that it's not anywhere in the report. So I assume that since there's not going to be a complete demolition of the entire structure, but it's only going to build up a second floor, that the tree would not be impacted. And certainly if it's a heritage tree, we need to protect that tree or those trees. So if there's any question about that, I mean, is there a question about that, Olivia? Or you say that you're going to have an arborist. There is a question about that.
Well, but this is how our office works. So we have our ordinance for significant trees and heritage trees requires us to regulate any construction that falls within the drip line of trees that we protect.
Okay.
So that is our requirement for us, is what we regulate. So we it's a step that we do have to take, and we're required to take.
Okay. May I ask the owners there, correct?
Sure. Linda, Councilman Lopez, I can promise you, if there's going to be, I mean, I wish I could show it to you guys better. It's an unbelievable redwood. And it's like a member of my family. Nothing's going to happen to that redwood.
I'm sorry. Mr. Fox, I just want to know what your intent is
Yeah.
regarding the tree.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying it's like a member of my family. That tree's not going anywhere. Yeah. So there's this project will not progress at all if there's going to be any issue with that tree. I mean, it's an incredible, beautiful tree. We're fortunate enough to have one smack dab in the middle of our front yard. I don't think many houses here have that. Mm-hmm. And there's just no possibility we would damage that tree at all. And that's why I'm looking forward to the arborist report to confirm that. And that, frankly, is one of the reasons we're applying for this exception, is because we don't want to expand the driveway and impinge on the tree. And we are keeping the footprint of the house is staying the same for that very reason, that we don't want to get into the tree. So I just want to be very clear that that's like priority one for us, honestly, is making sure that redwood is preserved.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the planner, the owner, anyone involved in this?
Mr. Chair, I just want to let you know that I have not received any written comments for this item. And if you want to just take public comment really quick to see if there's anyone that wants to speak. I do see 2 attendees. And if you wish to speak on item number 4, please do raise your hand now. Okay, no public comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I believe we need a roll call vote. Is that correct, Suki?
We do need I think, motion first, right? And then.
Through the chair, I'll motion that the North Fair Oaks Council recommend the off-street parking exception located at 803 15th Avenue.
And I will second that.
Okay, I'll take the roll call. Councilmember Cerrillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Gillespie?
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz is absent. Councilmember Whitney?
Yes.
Vice Chair Juan Carlos Parada?
Yes.
And then Chair Esser.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes with Jennifer Ruiz absent.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Next agenda item is an update from the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. I believe we have Captain Christina Corpus with us tonight.
Good evening, everyone, council members, Justin Mates. Tonight, I will be presenting on the crime stats in comparison from January 2020 to March 2020, in comparison to January 2021 to March 2021. And tonight, I also have with me Detective Joe Baker, who will be taking questions and giving a debrief on a homicide that we had in North Fair Oaks. So if somebody could share my presentation, please.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to share for you.
Okay, thank you.
Give me 1 second. Just confirming you're able to see that?
I am. If you could just go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
Thank you. So tonight I'll be reporting out on Part 1 crimes that are universal in the United States. And Part 1 crimes are comprised of homicide, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, larceny, and auto theft. So I'll be showing the chart that you see there is the comparison of the same time frame, January to March, for 2020 and for 2021. Next slide, please. So as you can see in the 2019-2020 slide, it shows the property crimes at 32 and then at 40. And then for 2021, property crimes, we had 43 cases increased. And then we had a total of 8 crimes against people for 2021 in comparison to 2020. Next slide, please. Crimes against people. So we hadn't experienced a homicide in North Fair Oaks since 2014. And it's unfortunate that somebody lost their life. But again, Detective Baker will go more into depth with the debrief on the homicide. And then we, in regards to robbery, we actually had a decrease by 3 cases in North Fair Oaks for the same time period for this year. Next slide, please. Again, crimes against people are assaults. For 2021, we had 11 cases, an increase of 11 cases. For rape, we had a decrease by 1 case in comparison to last year. Next slide, please. With our property crimes, for residential burglaries and commercial burglaries, we had an increase of 1 case for the same time period of this year, and we had a decrease of 2 for commercial burglaries for 2021. Next slide, please. So larceny, larceny is simple theft with no force, and we had 45 cases this year in 2021 in comparison to last year of 23. So we had an increase of 22 cases. And then vehicle theft is a regional issue that we're facing all along the state. Last year we only had 3, and in comparison to this same time period, 24. Next slide, please. So with the stay-at-home order, for 2020, people were at home. we saw a decrease in crime, but as things have opened back up and with COVID and people being released from jail or not being able to take people to jail for certain crimes, we are noticing an increase regionally. So it's not just in North Fair Oaks, it's all along the state with property crimes, auto theft, and then crimes against persons. Next slide, please. So we understand what the issues are. We continue with our enforcement and our patrol enforcement. We are dedicated to continuing to provide safety, strengthen the relationships within the community, looking at new strategies and responses, focusing on our community programs. As of now, community is so important to us. It's always been, but more so now because of the pandemic and things that are happening in society, and looking always at ways to improve our communication efforts to achieve a wider reach. And as Maggie mentioned earlier, we have been doing a lot with the Office of Community Affairs and with Supervisor Slocum's office as well. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to highlight, so even with the pandemic and us not being able to have a lot of in-person instruction, we continued to work and provide services to our community. We did things through Zoom. We had outdoor activities for kids following social distancing. We also provided face masks. Our kids were making face masks at the beginning of the pandemic. We have been working with the Silicon Valley Food Bank and providing food to families here in North Fair Oaks and on the coast side on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So again, we've been doing, continuing with our tutoring. We know more now than ever the kids need help with their schoolwork, especially since instruction has been primarily on Zoom. We've done some beach cleanups. We've continued to provide different types of activities for our kids because we know that this has impacted our youth. And we understand that kids are now facing depression, and we are working with Star Vista on bringing some mental health component to our programs as well. Next slide, please. Again, so we have our Care On program that has been instrumental in our community. Again, I think I covered it, but we have been doing care packages, masks, food distribution. We just have continued to try to meet the needs and help supplement our families in North Fair Oaks and on the coast side. Next slide, please. So here are some of the photos that of the things that we have done within the community. Worked with our partners at Redwood City Police Department, the CHP, worked with our other community partners, Casa Circulo, and then again with the Office of Community Affairs and Supervisor Slocum's office. And then if I can have Detective Baker now report out on the homicide that we experienced in North Fair Oaks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Joe Baker, and I'm a detective with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 2.5 years now, but I have been a sworn law enforcement officer for over 15. And I'm currently assigned as a investigator or detective with the Sheriff's Office, right there in the Hall of Justice at Redwood City. I was asked to speak tonight by Captain Corpus regarding the homicide that took place on the 400 block of 5th Avenue that occurred on March 2nd, 2021. Because this case is currently ongoing, I cannot provide the neighborhood with specific details about the case. I'm happy to answer questions if I can, but I will tell you all that based on the information that we have at this point, we believe that this was an isolated incident and that no one in the neighborhood would be targeted in the future or in danger. I just wanted to touch briefly on some security measures for people at your house. I want to strongly recommend anyone in the area to maybe invest in like a camera system, whether it's an Arlo or a Ring system, something that will either alert you when you're not at home, or will let the people that are out in front of your house, whether they're burglars or just kids lurking in the area, that you're watching them, even if you may not be home. I also encourage everyone to maybe, if you can afford to, invest in a burglary alarm. Oftentimes you can submit your alarm bills to your homeowner's insurance if you own the residence, and a lot of times your homeowner's insurance will give you a discount. Motion sensors in front of the house, if you have I know a lot of the streets down there are very dark, but a lot of times the motion sensors will usually convince people to keep moving. If anyone in regards to this meeting wanted to speak to me in detail about maybe security measures for your house, I'd gladly speak to you. At the end of the briefing, I will give you my telephone number and my email address so that you can all reach out to me separately. In regards to the homicide that occurred earlier this month, I would also like to tell everyone that has information, if anyone knows anyone that has information, whether they believe the information is not 100% complete or maybe it's just a rumor, to come forward. Many times investigations such as this one are often solved on a simple phone call or conversation on something that a witness noticed but didn't believe was a factor in the case. I also want to tell everyone in the meeting that if someone isn't feeling comfortable or is scared coming forward for fears of retaliation, I know that North Fair Oaks is a small community. I can assure you that the district attorney's office as well as the sheriff's office are committed to keeping you, your information, your family confidential, and keeping your neighborhood safe. If anyone wants to take my number, it's I think there's a chat, I can enter it there too, but briefly is 650-363-4060. And once again, my name is Joe Baker, and I'm with the Sheriff's Office. It's email address of jbaker@smcgov.org. Does anyone have any questions?
Juan Carlos, I see your hand up.
Yes, Detective Baker. I understand that there was a related shooting. I don't know if it was days after or weeks after, in the relatively same address. It was connected to the crime. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, we're still investigating possible leads on both cases, trying to determine if there is a direct involvement. I can't speak on the particulars of the case, but we're investigating every avenue that we have at this point.
Okay, and my follow-up question to that, I understand that from the crime that was done or reported on Warrington Avenue in San Mateo, a small convenience store, neighborhood convenience store, that was robbed at gunpoint. Could you explain or clarify that? If in fact, was it a real gun used, or was it a plastic gun that was used by the two individuals that I believe were arrested?
You're talking about the case in San Mateo PD?
No, I'm talking about here in North Fair Oaks, in the corner of San Mateo.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have any information about that. I gladly get back to you. If you, I'm not familiar with Zoom, but if you either email me or I gladly give you some information back to it. The way it works at the sheriff's office is you're a detective, you get assigned a particular case. And as you can imagine with the homicide that I have, I don't have, I haven't reviewed that one because I've been investigating this homicide. So I'm unaware of the robbery that you speak of, but I gladly get back to you.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know if Captain Corpus could just clarify or mention if you have that information on you, Captain, about the convenience store that was held up here in North Fair Oaks.
Yes, so it was the Golden Glaze Bakery, and it was the individuals were arrested immediately. I'm gonna wait to comment on the specifics of the weapon, but I do have a press release that I can forward to the council that talks about it. And then if you have any further detail or questions, we can gladly respond back to the council with those specifics.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Captain Corpus or Detective Baker? Linda, go ahead, please.
Captain Corpus, where does domestic violence fit into your report? Or is it separate, or where is it?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we actually have a new system, and what I've asked is that we separate domestic violence so I can report out on the specifics of domestic violence. So we're working at that. It's categorized under crimes against people, but I do want, it's important for me to be able to differentiate where the numbers are at in regards to our domestic violence, and to be able to compare, do comparisons, because I do work directly with Cora. And, you know, we're always working at providing information to the community in regards to the services, in regards to what resources are out there for victims of domestic violence. We have done some classes with our juveniles, with our youth groups, to really have them recognize what a healthy relationship is versus a non-healthy relationship. Because a lot of times, youth that have grown up in an environment, they don't know how to identify if maybe they're living in a home with parents that have an unhealthy relationship, and we don't want the cycle to continue. So we are working at ways of getting the information out, providing classes. So we are working at that, and at the next meeting, I'll be able to differentiate and break that up and have that separated. Yes.
And thank you, Captain. I had another question, and that's we already started hearing the fireworks, and I still have a hard time deciphering between gunshots and fireworks. They all sound the same to me. Anyway, so I hope we're going to be seeing you before 4th of July, so you can let us know what's going to happen.
I can actually tell you that we've already started working on a plan. So it does become very difficult when we are encountered, you know, we have 4 deputies and encounter, 150 people on a dark roadway, and everyone has commercial grade fireworks. So what we're doing is I've reached out to Redwood City Police Department and working with Menlo Park Fire and the Redwood City Fire Department as well. And what we're going to come up with, actually, I've been looking at other cities in California that have ordinances. So I will be presenting a copy of that ordinance to the county to see if there may be some opportunity for us to do an ordinance where it's a stiffer ordinance, and if somebody's lighting fireworks and they run back into the house, then the homeowner will receive a fine. But you know, that still has to go through county council and everything. So we'll be exploring that, and we'll be doing a joint campaign with Redwood City Police Department, Redwood City Fire, and the Menlo Park Fire Department.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, nice to hear from you too.
You have a question from Ever.
Yeah, thank you both for your presentation. My question was in regards to Detective Baker's recommendation for crime prevention, particularly around the security measures for home and investing perhaps in a camera system. I've read a couple of posts on Nextdoor from not necessarily residents from here from North Fair Oaks, because you know how next door is kind of scattered in surrounding neighborhoods. So this might have been, you know, from adjacent cities as well, for all I know. But you know, the comments are in regards of even though they were able to capture, you know, a thief going through their garage and stealing some things, you know, the police or sheriff wasn't able to capture the person or something. So I am wondering what is the process, if there's any specific process for, you know, if I get a camera system for my home and an intruder comes in, steals something, what is the process for me as a resident to give you that information, that video, and is there a follow-up?
Sure. I have just personally, I have a Arlo at my house. So if a crime happened in my house, I could call the police department, and I have the ability to email it to the responding officer or deputy. And then a lot of times too, depending on what kind of camera system you have, we have the Axon body cameras, but the sheriff's office has provided us with an iPod, and that iPod has given us access to camera system, right? So just like a cell phone would work, we could take photos, or we can a lot of times download pictures and or videos from, say, I've personally experienced times when the homeowner says, I can't figure out how to download it, or it's not working, in order to either send it to my email address. So what I do is I have him or her play the video at their house, whether it's on the cell phone, and I take a picture of a picture. So I would have your camera and then my iPod, and I would use that in the case. Coincidentally enough, we've seen several cases within obviously the last year where their suspects have been captured stealing stuff. Unfortunately, because everyone's wearing a mask, you only get a little bit of the you know, suspect's description. But I will tell you on a personal note that I have a picture was spread out on Nextdoor regarding petty thefts from unlocked vehicles, and the neighbors in the area, a few of them didn't report the incident. This particular subject went through the house door to door from the cars and stole change and things like that from people's cars. And then the next week came back, and I ended up tracking down several of the victims that reported on Nextdoor, but didn't report to the sheriff's office. So we were able to identify the suspect. We ended up getting the suspect that night, but we ended up charging him with the cases from the previous week because the subject was wearing the exact same shoes. So we were able to say this is without a doubt the guy, and everyone was able to get restitution, and the subject was taken to jail that night. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Juan Carlos, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I just want to congratulate Captain Corpus on the information that I think this year is going to be a unified front from San Mateo County with the Redwood City Police Department and the Fire Department. And certainly, I think incrementing the level of penalty, I hope that will be a deterrent, and we'll increase patrolling, I'm sure. And so I think it's great. I want to congratulate you on that.
Well, thank you. I'm also looking at a camera system that it is pretty mobile, and hoping that maybe we can put those up in the areas of concern that especially around the 4th of July, but also when we have a crime spree happening in certain neighborhoods. You know, these cameras would allow us to really be able to capture who is committing these crimes. And plus, if there's a vehicle associated, it would also catch a plate. And if they don't have a plate, it'll catch the color and make of the vehicle. So I'm looking at those resources as well. So hoping that we would get support.
I had a quick question for Captain Corpus. The residential burglary numbers, Captain, if I read those correctly, that was 3 in the last quarter, I believe. Is that correct?
Let me double check.
Okay.
So we had, yes. So in 2020 of last year, we had 2, and then this year we've had 3. So it's an increase of 1 for this quarter.
My question is, how does that compare with surrounding communities, Redwood City, Menlo Park, et cetera? Any
So
idea?
the numbers are much greater. I think Detective Baker can speak to that. We universally, at least on the peninsula, residential burglaries are rampant, and it's because of that we're limited as to who we can take to jail because of COVID, and just the laws have been. It's just harder to take people to jail, and a lot of times, even if they commit a crime, a lot of times they do very short amounts of time in jail, and then they're back out. So the penalties for them, what they can do, it's worth it for them to take the chance of getting arrested because they know they'll just be right back out. So unfortunately, some of the laws are working in favor of the criminal element.
So are you saying those numbers reported don't reflect the level of burglaries in the area? Maybe I don't understand.
No, so those are specific to North Fair Oaks. But if you do a comparison to say, like, the city of San Mateo, it's gonna be much larger, like even if it's a neighborhood that's similar to North Fair Oaks. So what I'm saying is, for our area, we're still not experiencing at the level that other communities are.
That was what I expected, given what looked to be fairly low numbers. So congratulations for you, your team, and your work, because there's a lot of credit to be taken there, I think. Are there any more questions for Detective Baker or Captain Corpus? I see Beatrice has her hand raised.
Right, I have a question. When it comes to larceny, simple theft, do we know if there's youth? Is it done by youth or older adults, or do we have any stats on that?
So I would, we'd have to run the specific numbers, but most of the majority of these are done by adults.
Oh, okay.
So the youth, what we try to do when we have a youth who's never been in trouble before and maybe it's stole something from Target or something. What we try to do is we try to put that individual on diversion, so they have an opportunity to change and not get put through the criminal system. So that's a collaboration through the courts, through probation, through the sheriff's office. So a lot of times, if they're first-time offenders, that's what we really try to do if it's a simple crime. So they won't have a record, and we put them on a contract, and their parents are involved. And because when a juvenile does go to juvenile hall, the parents are often charged for their stay there. So the parents are the ones that are paying the penalty.
As we go to in-person learning at the school, will there be the school resource officers there?
So currently our school resource officers have been, since the pandemic started, they were reassigned to patrol. So we've been requesting for them to come back, and I'm being told that they will be coming back in mid-May.
Oh, okay.
But we do have our patrol officers. So I just want to let you know that our patrol officers, they're all community servants, and they're all community engagement officers. In my bureau, what I really push is that everyone is a community police or community engagement officer. And everyone goes to the schools, everyone goes to read at the North Fair Oaks Library. We go to St. Anthony's to serve food. So it's not just the role of the SROs, but we are hoping that the SROs are going to be coming back in mid-May.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Detective Baker, Captain Corpus? Do we have any public comment, public questions? Suki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not received any written comments. We have 2 members in the attendees side. If you wish to comment on item number 5, please to raise your hand now. Okay, no hands raised and no public comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, thank you both again very much for your presentations, Detective and Captain. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Next item on the agenda is an update from the Multicultural Institute. Cesar Meza Esvila will be presenting. I hope I got that right.
Thank you. Sorry. Good evening, everyone, council members. Thank you for having us. Cesar is not today with us. He's on vacation this week, but my name is Josue Revolorio. I work with Cesar in North Fair Oaks and our North Fair Oaks office for the Multicultural Institute. And along with me, I'd like to introduce you my coworker, Eduardo Rosas, who is going to help me out with sharing his screen for the documents that I'm assuming you all have. If not, let me know and I can send a copy electronically afterwards. Anyways, thank you again. Here we are seeing in the screen a chart, which is an Excel page that sums up pretty much what we have been doing in the last quarter. And still during the pandemic, we have been, here I won't go, there is several columns with different colors. And as you may have read already, basically we are reporting from January to March 2021. And in the green section, we have everything related to day laborers and like present on the street, contacted by staff, job matches, and unduplicated register with us in our program. And since you may already know, since the pandemic, we have been doing outreach virtually. We stopped doing on the street outreach as we used to do on a daily basis. But in the last 3 months, as you can see in January, we only have 3 individuals that join that we register in our system, and February 2 and March 1 for a total of 297 for the fiscal year so far. And then in the yellow column, we have unduplicated employers and unduplicated other low-income people that we serve. And also we have 4 for January unduplicated employers, 2 in February and 4 in March, for a total in the fiscal year of 48. And then same thing with unduplicated other low-income people, 2 in January, 4 in February, 8 in March, for a total of 112. And then next section is about services that we provide. And as you may notice, in January, we have for legal and other, in general, legal cases, immigration and others, 7 in January, 245 and 12 in February and 12 in March, for a total of 1,041. And health cases from 280 in January, 1,506 in February, and 1,327 in March. So these 2 numbers that are big numbers in February for both legal and health cases, that has to do with we have been very intentionally, since we started getting reports from domestic workers and day laborers of scams and people trying to extortion them through text messages and phone calls with where they have seen Latino immigrants and maybe other immigrants from, immigrants from other ethnicities as an easy prey. And so we started like sending mass text messages and phone calls and individually text messages alerting people to prevent this from keep on happening, because we got a couple of cases that I could talk to as example. And then we have on a food bank column for January 121 in January, February 135, March 109, for a total of 1,078 for the fiscal year. Housing services, as you may know already, we have a house where we provide housing for some day laborers. We have room for 6, but so far we have 5, but at the beginning of next month, there will be a sixth one, day laborer who will be, and actually last evening, I met with him and we all welcomed him at the house. Workshops in January, we didn't have any. In February, we had 1, and March, we had 3. And then the number of participants, you can see on the next column. And this is pretty much what I wanted to say about these numbers. The totals you can see on the right columns, and also at the bottom, the total in the fiscal year. And I just wanted to highlight from this page that there has been a few cases of families or individuals that have been tested positive for the COVID. Some of them have gone to the hospital, and whenever needed and possible for us, we have delivered food to them since they isolated themselves and had no other way to get food. We have done that, and we have been also supporting them by getting them like appointments to get the tests or for the vaccine. More in the last, since the vaccine started or became available, given the priorities set by the federal government as well as the state government, and of course local government at the county level. And also we have been doing this in partnership with different institutions and organizations within the county. And so that's what I want, pretty much like Caron or United, San Mateo County Office of Community Affairs, and others that I also will talk later on. But I think this is pretty much from this sheet that you are looking at, and with help of my coworker Eduardo, I'd like to show you the next part of the report, which is a breakdown of services. This is direct services provided in numbers and specific aspects that we have been providing to domestic workers and day laborers. Here it is. As you can see now on your screen, here are the total numbers and individual lines. And here is where you can see the number on the legal for a total of 264. What I was talking about, the 236, that counts as sending mass text messages through Textedly, but also following up with them, with those who have been victims of it individually, phone calls, and advising them on as to what to do and where to go to report as well, not just with our help, but also advising them to go and report it to the police. So, and then the medical, the the bigger number that I was mentioning before in the chart is the numbers for the COVID vaccine or testing and referrals, pretty much referrals that we have been doing, and following up as well on mental health and all of that. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to highlight from this, because this is a 3-page long breakdown, and I don't want to keep you away from lots of things, but I would like to mention that thanks to our partnership with the San Mateo County Office and the Office of Community Affairs, we had a couple of events where we got a number of codes for us to help domestic workers and day laborers to set up appointments for them to get the vaccine. And given the technological divide, that's where we come in and help them, because most of them don't have an email address or don't know how to register themselves online, don't have access to the internet, all of that. So that's where we have been able to help them out, and with in collaboration with these organizations. Like in April 11, we had like 20 codes for the vaccination event at the KEEP school, and also with in partnership with Sister Christina in St. Francis Center. We also got access to and possibility to set up pre-registration and appointments for the Latino community to get the vaccine. And particularly for domestic workers, as Sister Christina, as that, just like us, considers domestic workers as essential workers. And on April 17th, we also had, we were able to support the vaccination effort by registering people to participate. On April 18th, and next Sunday, this coming Sunday, we are also registering people. We got another 20 slots to do that. So we have been promoting it through Textedly and WhatsApp and other medium, like phone calls and follow up. Once they get the vaccine, the first dosage, we do a follow-up with them. And also when they get the second one, we do a follow-up, because we want to make sure they really went to their appointments and they really got the vaccine. And here you are looking at the last part of our report. But before going into this page that you are looking at, the MI links, I just wanted to share with you two small testimonies. One from a domestic worker, Margarita, who was being potentially, because, well, she got a lot of pressure to fall into an extortion. She says, I wanted to share with you, this is separate from that, but she says, I want to share with you that I got the second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. I wish they could vaccinate people in our countries of origin. Thanks again for the work you do at Multicultural Institute. Greetings to you and your colleagues. And the second testimony is from a day laborer from El Salvador, Juan. He said, thank you for your help with $1,000 from the San Mateo County Immigrants Relief Fund through the Mission Asset Fund application, which is a great relief at this time. And without you, I couldn't do it. So, because we have been also through the pandemic helping day laborers and domestic workers to get access to the rental assistance that is coming out from the North Rocks Community Center, as well as from the California State or state of California. And, you know, for this last one, it has been really hard for domestic workers and day laborers, usually because they don't have, I mean, for the lack of contract, they usually they don't have a contract because there is someone else in charge of a property, and through a friend or other ways they get to some housing. But because they are not they are not in direct contact with the landlord, they don't have this contract. And so the state of California cannot help them because this is a requirement. So that's when the North Rose Community Center helps, because they will take them. But if they find out that that domestic workers or the laborers have a contract, then they will refer them to the state of California resources. So, and the last thing is what I wanted to share with you is that we want this report to serve also as a way to honor two of day laborers that passed away, unfortunately, victims of the COVID-19. The first one that you look up, that you're looking up in a screen, Don Ignacio Carlos Perez from Mexico. He was one of the residents at Casa de Paz y Bien, where we are offering housing for day laborers. Unfortunately, he got infected, and I think in about 3 weeks, he couldn't make it at the end. He had other underlying health issues, and unfortunately, he passed away. So we were supporting him before and during his stay in the hospital. At the end, we contacted, we were also in touch with his relatives, his sons, because we keep for emergency situations, we have contact with their relatives. And we were the ones who informed his sons because they didn't know he was at the hospital. Father Rigo as well, who is our executive director, went to visit him a couple of times, and then he was called to give the last, blessing from the Catholic, as a Catholic priest that he is, and comforted the family right there. But they only could see him through a window. And the second one is Don Clemente Lopez from Guatemala. We sent him to work so many times with many different employers, and we got good reviews or feedback on his work. Very hardworking man. Unfortunately, he spent like month and a half at the Stanford Hospital, fighting the COVID, but at the end, he couldn't make it as well. So may this report serve as a way to honor their lives, and that they are not just a number or part of the statistics of this pandemic, but they are actually people where we can see their faces and know their names. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer any and all of them.
Are there any questions for Josue? Do we have any public comment on the MCI report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not received any written comments. If there's any members of the public that wish to speak at this time, please do raise your hand. And Mr. Hernandez, I believe you don't have any comment as well.
Thanks, Suki. I don't have any at the moment.
I see Linda with her hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Josue, for the tremendous work that you do. Cesar has been one of our community partners. MI is definitely one of our very solid community organizations that is doing tremendous work. And I'm so sorry to hear that two of your members passed away. I'm very sorry to hear that. But I wanted to thank you for giving the report. And I know it's been very difficult, but we support you 100%. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. I appreciate it.
I'd like to echo Linda's remarks, an enormous amount of work that you do for the community, and it's very, very much appreciated. Ever has his hand up.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just put the mic. Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. Josue, how has been the hiring program? Do laborers continue to be hired regularly, or has it slowed down? How are things working?
Well, pretty much during most of the pandemic, slowed down a lot. And usually the low season for the laborers on cyclically, it's during the winter period. But this time around, it was because of the pandemic. It's like the slowdown was very early in the game, and then it's just starting picking up. And basically, my guess is that has to do partly on the weather that is getting better. Of course, we are in spring, but also the fact that there is every day more and more people getting the vaccine. I think people are getting more confident because they, and we have been also letting employers know that the laborers are getting the, vaccine. So I think that's being helpful, and just starting picking up this week. I've been getting more employers calling to hire the laborers. And as I mentioned before, we are doing this work now so far virtually, reaching out the laborers, but also providing services just by, virtually. But we are thinking and planning to start coming back pretty soon, at least little by little, not as we used to before the pandemic, but little by little, I think we will start like having more like physical presence. But we will let you know when that will happen. Thank you for asking, Ever.
Thank you very much, Josue, for your report, and sorry for the loss of the compañeros that died, victims of COVID. And by all means, if the Multicultural Institute needs any help, promoting the services from the center or any assistance, please let us know. The council is here to support you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's good to know.
Beatrice, you have your hand up.
Yes. I'd like to know the scams. I have a lot of that going on with me, and I don't know how they're getting my personal information, but I also know many of my friends and coworkers. It's coming down heavy, and I don't see, is there like a point person that we need to contact? Is there, step 1, step 2, step 3? But these scams are ongoing, and they're especially hard in North Fair Oaks. Because I'm also a person that on a regular basis are getting these phone calls.
Yeah, I'm sure we all do. Like where we get lots of phone calls, even at my, our work cell phone, we get lots of phone calls threatening with and saying that there is something wrong with my social security number that I need to call if I don't want to get in trouble, or with the IRS, that kind of things that happens even in my personal phone. But a lot of people, particularly immigrants, who didn't have the luxury, the opportunity, or the to go to school, for example, and given their situation, they get scared by these kind of phone calls or text messages, and sometimes they get tricked. Like a particular case that I can mention is day laborer who got a phone call and he was offered to get like a laptop, to other electronic devices for $450. And it was, he knew that it was a good bargain. And so when they noticed that he was interested, they started asking all of his personal information, and they said they offered to deliver those devices, and he didn't have to pay anything until he got them. But then he started getting a phone call saying that the delivery was done, that they have received it at his house, and he didn't send the money as agreed, but there was no such delivery. And they started like threatening him with that he will lose his or his credit history was going to be damaged, that he couldn't in the future, if he wanted to change his status, apply for change of status, that will be damaged as well, and so many other threats that he went ahead and sent the money they were requesting, because they said now you have to pay $850, something like that, like twice as much as he was asked the first time around. And so he sent the money, but he, like a couple of hours afterwards, he called me, and I said, go to the bank, because he said that it was close by, and try to stop that payment. If they haven't cashed the check that you sent or the money order, they might, or whatever it was, they could stop it. And he went and ran, and he said by the time he got there, he was told at the bank that the check was already cashed, already cashed. So then I advised him to go to the police and report it, and maybe police could trace the phone number where he was getting the threats. But these people are very professional with these scams, and there is usually no way to track them because they're down, because they are very professional and leave no traces. So this is one of the examples, but I could give you a few more. But this is one of the ones that stand up, and it's, that's the way they get people's personal information, by tricking them and lying to them.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions for Josue? Okay, well, thank you so much for your presentation this evening.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Last item on the agenda tonight, COVID-19 vaccine update from Justin. Apologize, we're running late. We're giving you a late starting time tonight, but if you could do a summary, that would be terrific.
That's great. Yes, no, appreciate the lateness. I had a bit of a slideshow, but I'm only going to show you the most important things that I think is what you need to know. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. I think some of the other presenters already touched on a little bit of what the county is doing right now with respect to the COVID vaccine rollout. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick, because it is something I'd like to show you all. Hopefully you're seeing my screen now in the presentation version of my screen. Are you seeing it?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I won't go through a lot of these high-level stats other than to note that the county is currently at 64.2% of the eligible 16 and above vaccinated. Just by comparison, I believe the state of California is in the 40s right now. So, but this is right around where most of the counties in the Bay Area are. I think as I described last month, there's an equity measure that the state uses, which is the vaccination rate in what they call the low HPI quartile in your county. It's essentially the least advantaged, least healthy neighborhoods in the county. And as you can see right now, as of this week, our vaccination rate in those areas is 50.5. So about 11 points or so below, 12 points below the county overall. But by comparison, last month when I talked to you, that figure was at 31%. So almost a 20% increase overall. This is the one I particularly want to show you. This unfortunately is not a public dashboard because it is so complicated it crashes the whole system when too many people are on it. But I have taken a snapshot of the North Fair Oaks. This is a dashboard that allows you to select certain neighborhoods or cities, and then it shows you not only where the vaccination rate is for that area versus the county average. Here you'll see the North Fair Oaks is now at 54.75% or 74%. Again, I think that last month when I talked to you, it was at least 20 points below that. But this also shows who are the providers who are vaccinating the residents in this area. And so as you can see here, San Mateo County Health, that's the community events that the county hosts. Kaiser, the San Mateo Medical Center, that's going to be the Fair Oaks Clinic on Middlefield. And then Stanford, Dignity, and then a substantial number of CVS folks are getting vaccinated CVS as well. So this is really a useful tool to show us where the providers are having the most impact. And I just want to show this to you, and I'll send these slides to you all so you can see them later. But I thought this was an interesting one, and certainly we still have a gap. North Fair Oaks is still at a lower vaccination rate than the county overall, but doing pretty well overall and actually higher than most of the other low HPI areas in the county. I'm just going to go straight to the most important thing, in my opinion, which is the events this weekend. There are two specifically serving the North Fair Oaks area. This is one that is Ravenswood Family Health Center is operating in partnership with the county and the city of Palo Alto and Menlo Park and Belhaven Action. It's at the Facebook campus. The information's up here. Like I said, I'll send it to you. They have shuttles from North Fair Oaks, from East Palo Alto, from Belhaven, so folks can get to the Facebook campus, and it's all walk up, but they do it by last name to try to spread out the crowd over the length of the clinic. The county operated clinic this weekend is Sunday, and we are now going to be at the Fair Oaks Clinic parking lot. This is essentially the same operation that was at the KIPP Center, the KIPP Academy, but we are trying to find a permanent central location. And also school sites are difficult when kids are back in in-person learning. So we are hoping to be able to have this as a regular Sunday event at the Fair Oaks Clinic parking lot. I was in a meeting earlier where Eva Rodriguez identified that this is a place that the community looks to for health services. So we think it's a natural fit. It's got some operational challenges, but we think we're going to be able to get through that. So here's the information. There are organizations like Multicultural Institute, which have the ability to book folks right into appointments, but we also have walk-up capacity. And it is a Moderna clinic, so it's 18 and older, not 16, 18 and older. And with that, I'll skip the rest of my presentation. I'm happy to send it to you and happy to answer any questions you
have. Are there any questions from council members for Justin?
Oh, yeah.
I see Ever with his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, for sharing that information. One question that I had, and maybe this is something I need to ask the Ravenswood Clinic, is the change on the vaccination at the Facebook side, because they're implementing the alphabetical order this time around, which they didn't have in the past. I think, while it makes sense for a second dose because it may allow for simplified data entry. Maybe for the first dose, it imposes some challenges. Let me give you a quick example. So maybe a couple of weeks ago or so, I went to a local bakery here, and the I asked, the people who work there if they had all got their vaccination. They said no, but where is it happening? So I knew, and I told them, and they said, oh, so we're gonna see if our boss allows us, the lunch break or additional time, close to lunch break to go and get the vaccine. And so with the alphabetical order, it poses a challenge in which, you have to show up at exactly the same time when your last name, says you're allowed to. So, in that regard, it may pose, a challenge for folks who are working. But maybe, again, this is something that I need to ask the Ravenswood Clinic, unless if there's a reason for this.
No, I have not talked to them specifically about the name piece of it, but I will tell you it's the sort of thing we have been discussing too. We are not doing that at the county operated clinic right now, but I believe it's in order to space people out. I bet it's not rigid, that if you show up in the wrong name category, you can still get vaccinated. But one of the challenges we had, for example, the 2500 site when we were running it, is that everybody would show up right at the beginning. And so you would have folks in line for 2 or 3 hours. And then at the end of the day, you have no line and you have vaccinators standing around with no one to vaccinate. And so that's part of the challenge, is that people would wait in the sun for 3 hours. And that, that's something that's trying to struggle with too. We're all trying to figure out what's the right mix of features in a site. And we do stay in touch with Ravenswood. Of course, we help sponsor these events. And so I'm happy to pass that feedback on. And I'm also eager to see how it goes for them on Saturday. They're planning a large event, 1,200 doses. It's a lot of people. And so I'm eager to see how they do. And we all try to learn from each other as we've tried to do this thing that no one's done before and vaccinate everyone in a short amount of time. But all this kind of feedback, we appreciate it, because that's how we learn and how we try to get better with our clinics every week.
Thank you. And finally, a little bit of feedback in terms of the Fair Oaks Community Center. As the weather is increasing in temperature, if I'm not sure if it might be possible to utilize the multi-purpose room. I know that's a larger room there in the facility. At least for the people who have to wait, the 15, 20 minutes that they have to wait after the vaccine, but that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion. I do want to explain a little more too. The Fair Oaks Clinic site is able to be a drive-through site. We couldn't make that happen.
Oh, wow.
Site in North. We're trying to make that happen there. There's also walk-up capacity for those who don't have a car, can't have access to a car that day. But it's also a drive-through site. So most of the observation area will happen in people's cars. It is a similar model that we use at the event center at SFO as well. And so we're piloting it at the Fair Oaks Clinic. But the point is well taken, Ever, with respect to the sun. We know the weather is changing, and even in the early spring, it can get hot out there. So whether it's with shade or if we can try to do indoors, most of it's outdoors, but we are sensitive to the needs of those who are waiting. And sometimes people can wait up to 30 minutes, and that's a long time to wait in the sun.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Beatrice, I see your hand.
Right. For ongoing COVID testing, should what's like the primary source that they should look for? Sometimes their employment requires just kind of updating or just proof that they have been tested before they're allowed to work somewhere or with someone. So where should they be searching for like ongoing testing, for employments, let's say?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's such an important issue. Testing remains very important. We have seen a drop in testing, and I think as vaccines increase, people feel like that, testing is no longer important. But it is so important. If you have any symptoms, even if you have a vaccine, you may not have serious complications from COVID, but it's good for you to know you have COVID. And certainly it's also very helpful for public health officials to know where the positive cases are so that we can continue to manage this pandemic. It's not going to go away when we're all vaccinated. We just hope that the very serious effects of the disease go away. So I will put this in the email too. We continue to have a testing website on our page, and we have regular test sites across the county, including in North Fair Oaks. Okay. I will send you the link that has information on where folks can find testing opportunities.
Thank you.
Please encourage folks. If anyone has questions, we want folks to still be tested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Justin? Suki, do we have any questions from the public for Justin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not received any written comments. There's one member in the attendees list. If you wish to speak, please do raise your hand now. And while we wait for that, Mr. Hernandez, do you have any speakers on your end?
Thanks, Suki. I don't have any.
Okay, please proceed, Mr. Chair. No speakers.
Okay, terrific. Well, thank you very much, Justin, for your presentation. That concludes the agenda for this evening. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to thank everybody from the county who supports us, Suki, Victor. I see Tim still on the line. We have Emma out there, so thanks very much for your support. Particularly, we ran a little bit late tonight. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. We will
Good
meet
night.
Good
again
night.
Thursday, May 20th.
Good night.
Study session.
Good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.
The time is now 9:13 and the meeting is now adjourned.